3 messages before today's interview educates and motivates you. First, if you're a domain name investor, don't you have unique legal needs that require domain name technical know-how and industry experience? That's why you need David Westlow of Wiley Ryan. Go search for David Westlow on Domain Sherpa, watch his interview, and you can see for yourself that he can clearly explain issues, can help you with buy-sell agreements, deal with website content issues and UDRP actions, and even help you write your website terms and conditions. David Westlow is the lawyer to call for internet legal issues. See for yourself at newmediaip.com. Second, managing multiple domain name marketplace and auction site accounts is a pain. Inevitably, you forget to sign into one and you lose a great domain, or worse. Now imagine using a single, simple to use and comprehensive control panel to manage all of your accounts. That's Protrata. You can set up search filters, analyze domains, automate bidding, list domain names for sale, buy domains across all major marketplaces. Protrata also has a new semantic engine that builds Google-friendly websites with rich content and network feeds. Sign up at protrata.com to get 20 free credits and start building and monetizing your domains today. Finally, if you have questions about domain names, where should you go to ask them? The answer is dnforum.com. Not only is DN Forum the largest domain name forum in the world, it's the best. You can learn about domain names and the industry, buy and sell domain names, talk about the domain name news that's happening in the industry, and even meet domainers just like yourself. Register for a free DN Forum account and begin advancing your skills and knowledge today. And when you do sign up, send me a friend request so we can connect on DN Forum. Here's your program. Hey everyone, my name is Michael Seiger and I'm the publisher of DomainSherpa.com, the website where you come to learn how to become a successful domain name entrepreneur directly from the experts. Everyone knows that property valuation is difficult. Talk to 3 real estate agents and ask them to set a value on your house and you'll get 3 completely different answers. Most likely, one of them will be much higher or lower than the other 2, and also likely there will be no overlap between the 3 valuations. The same is true for domain name valuations. Ask 3 people, ask 3 domain investors that you know for a valuation on a domain name that you're thinking about selling, that you're thinking about buying, and you're likely going to get 3 different answers. We've published an article about online valuation tools like Estabot.com and Valuate.com in the past, and in the comments, not a lot of people were happy with the result of these 2 tools. I've interviewed Ryan Colby in the past, and he detailed 15 factors for determining a domain name valuation. Today, we're going to learn about a new online tool that goes beyond the other online tools, and we're going to find out how it does it. Joining us to tell us more about domain name valuations and the DomainWorth.com valuation tool is the Chief Technology Officer of DomainParking.com and the Chief Architect of DomainWorth.com web app.
Hey there.
Hey, Dennis. So, I actually missed my intro there, Dennis. Your name is Dennis Lastochkin.
Lastochkin, that's right.
Lastochkin. I was so close, Dennis. Dennis, welcome to the show. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Dennis, a lot of people are weary of online valuation tools because they don't know if they can trust the results, and they don't know what is in that black box. You know, you put in a domain name, it spits out a value. You promoted DomainWorth.com at the Domain Fest conference in Santa Monica in February 2012. I came to learn about it because it was actually on my table. You handed these out on the tables.
Right, those were the breakfast.
Yeah, the breakfast, exactly. And I showed up, and it's like a certificate, and it says Domain Worth. I love the name. Like, here's the worth of this domain. And all of them were different as far as I can tell. Like, this one says nyevents.com, and then it's got a market low valuation high and a price, and another one was milligram.com. I'm not sure if these are domain names that you own or they're just ones that you ran, but that looks
those were domain names that were actually the auction, and we try to have people look at the valuations before the auction and then kind of compare the auction results to what we had to say.
All right, so you ran valuations during the Domain Fest auction on the actual sales. How did your valuations using domainworth.com compare to the domains that actually sold and what those values were?
Right. So the last day of Domain Fest in February, and we actually were sitting in the room, and while the auction was going on, we had a computer with us, and we were checking the valuations, and I can say that about 90% of the time we were within 30% margin of error. So we were pretty good for a domain appraisal, since it might not be very good for house appraisal, but very, very decent for domain appraisals.
Yeah.
Actually, some of the domain names that didn't really correspond to our appraisal didn't sell. It was like sitting there and seeing, okay, is it going to sell? Is it not going to sell? How close is it going to get to the appraisal? And some of the appraisals initially we had high, and the domain started really low, and then we're like, oh man, is it really gonna? Is it what's going on here? And then whoa, the price climbed to about our appraisal price.
Yeah.
So it was really interesting to see. And some of the people actually looked over their shoulders to look at their screen and see what happens, and some of them were very impressed.
Awesome. So basically within a 30% margin. So let's say that I was selling $1 million house and I used your valuation tool. If it worked for real estate, it would have a valuation between $700,000 and $1.3 million if the true value, let's say, was $1 million.
Right, and some of them came much closer than that. I mean, we had a lot of people. We had a booth set up at Domain Fest, and a lot of people came over and just tried out their service and appraised the domain names over there. And a lot of the people, some of the people, they said 100,000, it came up as 100,001 or something like that.
Yeah.
So sometimes it was really close.
Well, I've actually run it through some of the domain names that I've looked at that I own, and I think it's remarkably close as well. It gives you a pretty consistent range, not just a value, but a range, a low value and a high value. And I appreciate that. Of the real property owners that I speak to, if I talk to them about a house, I don't want to know an exact number. I generally want to know a range. I want you to look at the comps. I want you to make some comparisons to the house I'm looking at or the house I'm looking at selling, and I want to generally know what the range is. And so I appreciate that about your system.
Right, and some people, when they sell a domain name, it depends how motivated they are. If they want to sell a domain name, if you want to sell a house tomorrow, if you want to sell a domain name tomorrow, you're probably going to take a cut compared to if you're willing to wait 10 years. So that range is actually good for it depends how motivated you are. So you cannot just put a number. You have to have some range depending on how motivated you are and so forth.
Awesome. So we're going to dig in and figure out how the system works and what you look at in order to come up with this valuation range. But I want to take a step back and find out a little bit more about you, Dennis, because I'm not sure a lot of people in the industry know about your background. How did you get the skills to be able to architect a system like domainparking.com or domainworth.com? What's your background?
Well, I started pretty young. When I was 14, I lived in Israel, and I took a C++ class when I was 14 years old. I was kind of biking to that class at the time. I didn't drive a car, and you couldn't drive a car in 14 in Israel. So I biked to a C++ class, evening class in the Technion, and that's how I started. And then I did some homework for my mother, and at about age 16, I was already like writing small programs. So it was an early start.
Yeah.
I was actually born in Moscow, Russia. So I lived in a couple of countries before I came to Austin, Texas. As far as how I started with it, when I was 18 years old, I came to Austin and I met FM and Eagle, and I'm sure you guys know Eagle is Mrs. Jello. I started working for them, and we started from a service called iboogie.com, and it's still up. And basically, what it is it's a clustering engine, and it's useful to group snippets or paragraphs of text into meaningful hierarchical groups. So let's say you have 1,000 answers from a survey, and you want to know more or less what the what those answers are talking about, and you can put this into into our engine and get the main topics of what those answers are talking about.
Interesting. So the URL is iboogie.com.
That's
and if
right.
I do an open-ended survey, like somebody comes to Domain Sherpa and I have a little pop-up on the bottom that says, tell us how we can get better. And it's an open-ended response.
Right. And
I don't want to have to go through every single response to figure out what the general trends are and, count up who's saying the site needs to be faster and the site needs more technical interviews and this and that. I can put it into iboogie.com and you'll semantically figure out.
We have an API that you can use and basically, we can, you can use iboogie.com. Iboogie.com is basically a little bit more different. It's for a search engine. So basically, it's a clustering search engine. So you have, let's say you have 1,000 results or 100 results, and you want to know more or less what those results from a search engine are talking about. So iboogie.com does that for you. It takes those results, the snippets of text, and clusters them into groups, so you can see immediately what the subject is, what the different aspects of the results are, and so forth.
Very cool. So you worked on the technology for that.
Yeah.
The public-facing side is iboogie.com, but then you probably have an API that I can connect into and buy that service or buy access to the service?
Exactly.
Very cool.
Yep.
So where did you go after working on iboogie.com? What did you move to next?
Well, we moved to actually building a parking system. We were one of the first people that built a parking system. It was called Domain Spa. That eventually now it's turned into domainparking.com.
It was Domain Spa, SPA.com?
Yeah.
Okay, just clarifying for the transcriber that's going to type up the notes later. And it became domainparking.com, which is a fantastic URL.
It's a good domain name, yes.
Yeah.
So we built a parking system, and after the parking system we moved to a registrar. So we have our own registrar, and after that we moved to an image content management system and a drag and drop automatic website builder, and now we moved to an appraisal. About a year ago we started working on the appraisal, and yeah, that's where we're now.
Wow. So you had your hands in. You worked on all of those different technologies?
Yeah.
That's fantastic. Wow, the experience that you've got, Dennis, that's amazing. And were you, I at the beginning of the show, I said you were the chief architect of domainparking.com, and I'm going to have that scratch from the transcript. Domainparking.com and domainworth.com. Were you also chief architect, or were you learning more about architecture when you were working on the content creator and the registrar?
Oh no, I was the chief architect of the content creating system and of the registrar as well.
Wow. All right. So a ton of background. You understand how generally the internet works, how domain names are handled from cradle to grave. You understand the technology that supports all of those. So no holds barred. Any type of technical questions that I have, I'm going to throw them out at you, Dennis, because you clearly know a heck of a lot more than I do and most people watching the show. All right, so let me now that we know your background, let me ask you a little bit about how long it took to build domainworth.com. If I go to domainworth.com and I type in a few domain names, it actually it spins some wheels sometimes, and it shows me that you're checking information, and then it gives me a full appraisal online, sort of like this printout that I have right here in front of me. How long did it take you from cradle to grave to build that domainworth.com appraisal system?
Well, it's a work in progress, but we started last summer, and